I had like three topics for today, and they were coming up through the whole day and in a different ways. So in the morning, I had a big topic of. So I woke up and I'm like, had this thought of what is self-love, like what do we define as love actually, because for me it's an interesting topic because a lot of people they feel differently. Some people say love is like, oh, it's when you feel the energy from someone else coming to you, and then it's so and you just can't resist. And then for other people, love, but like that's not the love between like a mother and a son, for example, right? So I wonder, can we come up with a general definition? Like I was pondering on a general definition for love, and the thing that for me makes the most sense is two components. It's acceptance, and I think that's a huge part of like actually loving someone. Like, can be your friend, it can be your relative, it can be your romantic partner, is that you accept them for who they are, with all the flakes and all the things that they do and all the mistakes that they make. You just accept them as they are. And the second one is forgiveness, because as much as we accept people as they are, uh, people will hurt us, people will laugh. Like, people who have children know how many times their child will say something that hurts you so much, but at the same time your children don't understand it. So ability to forgive them, to being able to see beyond the hurt that they caused you, that's for me is the second definition of love. And I thought of like, you see these elderly couples who, when they look at each other, and you see they were like in a relationship for maybe 30 years or something like this, but they look at each other in a way where you can still see they are still in love with each other, to the extent where they're discovering each other every day. And you also realize that they went through a lot of shit together. You cannot go through like 30 years of relationship without a lot of shit, without hurting each other many times, without triggering each other and doing all these various things to each other. And I think the differentiator why they are still in a relationship, and maybe we as a generation, we actually need to learn this from our previous generation, that we don't forgive as much as they did. We feel that we need the perfect partner who will be so perfect that it's just gonna be awesome every day, all day. And maybe it's just impossible. Maybe perfect is something which is just in our mind. It's like a perfection, because perfection is a weird thing. When you achieve the state of perfection, so when you want to do something perfect, the next thing you do is you go for the further perfection. You don't stop and say, hey, awesome, I found I did the perfect thing. So like, I remember when I was like coding a lot, right? You make a perfect function, and you don't stop there. You start looking for the ways to make it even better. So, do we stop to celebrate the perfection that we found, or do we just think that it's now perfect and continue to search for the new perfect? So, I think perfection is not what defines love. For me, it's acceptance of the person of who they are, and forgiveness for everything which happens between you and especially as a parent. I think it's the hardest thing to do, because like I see it with like my parents, and for the brief period I was a parent for a kid, that sometimes kids say very fucking mean things. They would just be mean to you, and it feels like they're being mean intentionally, but they just hurt, and they don't necessarily realize that they're hurting you as much, or even if they do, they just freaking triggered. So might just forgive them. Yeah. So that was coming in the morning, and then in the afternoon it kind of transitioned for me to the concept of self-love, which is what we're talking a lot about here. And self-love kind of interjects a bit with narcissism, and narcissism in a way where what is the difference? Especially like here in Russia, I can see that self-love as a word, just as a word, like linguistically in here in Russia, self-love is actually a very bad word. Like if you say I love myself, people will be like, ugh. They'll be like, you are some kind of peacock or something like this. They call it peacock here, which is kind of funny. Especially if the man says it. Then a woman might say it, but if a man says something like this, they'll be like, ooh, no, stay away from this person. So there's cultural thing about self-love here, which is kind of interesting connotation to me. And what is the difference between being being in love with yourself and actually being narcissistic? Because you can be narcissistic and like, I love myself so much that I'm just so perfect. And for me it's the same difference. It's like when you love someone to the extent where you don't see their flaws, where you do not see that they are not perfect, then you actually love them. When you expecting them to be perfect, when you expecting your partner to be perfect, your kids to be perfect and never say anything wrong, then that's different kind of love. I don't know what to call that. I think it's more like a search for perfection, making things projects. So like a kid may be a small project, like I have a kids and I want my kids to be so perfect, so they're better than me and they need to have this and this and this qualities, and they're gonna be my perfect role models of what I didn't become, or something like that. And the same goes with romantic relationships, right? You feel this perfect partner who should be better than you at everything, so that you can learn from it and he can raise you to the next level. While accepting a person, just accepting them without trying to be like, oh my god, it's so perfect, is very different to me. And the third topic was which came up with the conversation with Alex, which my friend from Australia, which is now in Hong Kong, moving somewhere else. And digital nomads, we're always moving. So the topic which came up is the topic of self-worth, which like Alex, I love his quotes. Like I think one of the quotes is going on my social media soon is his quote, and he said something like that. It's not a perfect quote, that if your self-worth is based on someone else's self-worth, do you actually have self-worth? And it was in relation to this interesting topic of people like he himself said, and I definitely recognized in myself, that he was afraid to be alone. And I definitely had this thing where right after like my school, I lived with my grandma, and then I got into a relationship, and kind of for like pretty much almost 30 years I've never been alone, was like never been single by myself. And then I went to like Singapore and lived there by myself, and I was like, what the fuck, I like that. But being able to be being able to like that state when you are by yourself, and it doesn't mean that you like need to cut off yourself from all the friends and like go and live in the mountains somewhere, right? That's very different experience. That's isolation, complete isolation. Not everyone can handle this. I'm talking more about the state of where you don't look for relationship, you don't need relationship, you're okay as you are, and if relationship stumbles on your way, perfect, and if it doesn't, it's still great. And that's like that was my big differentiator when like I was here after my search for a soulmate, or whatever we call it, in Korea, and after I came to Russia, I was dating extensively. I was going on dates like every day. Tinder was my only app I would open on my phone, pretty much. I was like Tinder, and go on a day for like 3-4 times per day, per week. Per day probably would be cool. And I didn't really have much success at it, because I've noticed that I've started to change myself. I started to create this picture which what I supposed to be to get the date on a specific base, to get somewhere, and it starts feeling so fake, so unnatural, so kind of gross even, that I just stopped. I'm just like, fuck it. I don't want, if this is what it takes to be in a relationship, to create that kind of artificial face for someone else, I don't want to be that. I don't want to look for a relationship. And next thing you know, I'm flying to Thailand and finding a relationship. Accidentally. That's the thing, I didn't find a relationship, it kind of stumbled into it. It wasn't intentional. I didn't go, like, no, I can't imagine a single person going on a boat with, like, search for a relationship. Because first, you're going on a boat, second, it's not a cruise where you have a bunch of hot girls. Like, you're just going on a boat with digital nomads. I didn't know even if there will be just a bunch of guys. So, definitely was not my intention, and when it was my intention, it actually happened, which is kind of funny. Same story happened to my partner. She, like, tried to find a relationship, and she didn't find the one she wanted, and then she stopped looking, and then we kind of fall into that, let's stumble into that relationship instead. And yeah, so being able to be just with yourself, and this is what I'm planning to do in, like, when I head to Bali, because here I'm not pretending I'm by myself. Come on, I'm living in my parents' place, so it's not by myself here. I'm not, like, trying to pretend. So when I go to Bali, that's the time when my by myself time finally starts. And then just, like, being okay with that, and not, like, going and trying to look for a relationship. And there are certain human instincts, like, you know, you, like, get horny, you're like, oh, you see a girl and you instantly, like, and that's the stuff to deal with myself. It's like, it's something to need to work on, I need to work on, and something to see how can I diffuse, I guess, to make it less. Yeah. So, yeah, self-worth is an interesting piece, because for me, self-worth is your self-worth. It doesn't depend on anyone. You don't need a romantic partner, you don't need friends. It's, are you like actually okay just by yourself? That is when I think you have self-worth, because you know that it's gonna get crazy, because your brain is gonna go like but if you can be okay with that state, I think this is when you are mature enough to actually go into a relationship which will grow and blossom and will be beautiful, because then you can hold yourself, and as you can hold yourself, you can hold your partner. Yeah, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Maxim out.